In April of 2021, I took a leap of faith and left my well-paying 9-to-5 job to pursue content creation full-time. As I come up on my 2-year anniversary of being a self-employed influencer, I wanted to take some time to answer your burning questions about what content creation is like, what it's really like to be self-employed, and how to make this all work when you're building a personal brand online. If you're new here, I'm a fashion and beauty micro-influencer based in New York City, and I use this channel to help you create great content, grow your digital brand, and create sustainable income from content creation. So if any of that interests you, please consider subscribing. You guys sent some fantastic questions. I've got them right here on my laptop, and I was pretty much able to group them into 3 main categories that we'll go through today. The first group of questions focused mostly on the logistics of being self-employed. There were a lot of questions about making money and also working with brands. And then there were a few questions specifically about different social media platforms and creating content. So without further ado, let's dive in. The first question that was about the logistics of being self-employed was, how do you set your schedule each week? So essentially, I plan my weeks as a content creator based on the goals that I have for the year. And the easiest way that I find to break this down is to look at my goals for a particular quarter. So we're just wrapping up the first quarter as I'm filming this video, and to see what goals I want to achieve and then plan my weeks accordingly based on what my goals are. So for my quarterly goals, usually I'll set out to do one big task or complete one particular element of that goal in a given month, and that helps me break down even further into what do I need to get done this week so that I can make sure that I stay on task and get to achieve the goals that I set. So I would say 75% of what I end up doing week to week is usually in service of a big quarterly goal. But I make sure not to spend all of my time in a given week just working towards those goals, because I can't forget about the day-to-day admin tasks and other areas of my business that I still need to be paying attention to. So I make sure to leave about 25% of my time, so just around a day or a little bit more than that each week, to make sure that I'm paying attention to answering my emails, answering Instagram DMs, responding to YouTube comments, and all of the little day-to-day tasks that still need to happen in order for my business to run. And in terms of getting a little more specific about the day-to-day, usually in the mornings, I'll either do a workout on the Peloton, or I will do some reading, like one or the other, to just do something creative that's not work related to jumpstart my day. And I also like to do kind of an admin hour. I call it morning startup in the mornings, where I sit down, and usually between like 8:30 and 9:30, I'm responding to any urgent messages, getting some posts up for the day or scheduling things for the day, and just making sure that I get all of my admin, like kind of most important, like short timing tasks, things that don't take more than like 5 minutes to do, out of the way, so that then I can spend my later mornings and the early afternoons focused on the bigger tasks that require the most brain power, because I know that's when I'm most productive. So if you're looking for tips for setting a schedule, definitely asking yourself when you're most productive will be really helpful, and then working backwards from there based on what you need to get done is definitely what works for me and what I would recommend. Okay, next question about self-employment. When it comes to taxes, how do you know what's considered a write-off or a business expense? This always reminds me of David from Schitt's Creek, which is an iconic moment, honestly. My answer to this and almost everything tax related is just to get an accountant that you know and trust. An accountant will always be able to tell you with much more certainty than I will what actually counts as a business expense or a write-off. Being self-employed, I also pay quarterly taxes. So I'm here in the US, so I pay taxes on the 15th every April, June, September, January. Yeah, that sounds right. I pay quarterly taxes because that's something my accountant and I have discussed, where it helps me spread out my payments so I'm not stuck with a big bill come April when we do file taxes here in the US. So that's something that I do personally. And then again, when it comes to those business expenses and write-offs, I would keep a list of everything throughout the year that you think of as a business expense, and then show it to your accountant so they can help you review and say, yes, this is very clearly a business expense. Maybe we could say this is a business expense, or sorry, but this doesn't count. I just think it's always better to be safe than sorry in those situations. Some things that I have been able to expense as part of my business in the past include things like softwares that I use to run my business day to day, contract labor if I've gone on any work trips and incur any expenses on those trips, and also things like office supplies, anything operational, camera equipment, and things like that. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more of an indication, but in general, please go ask an accountant. Another question I got was basically about what it means to manage yourself or be represented by management, and how to find management that's the right fit for you as an influencer. So I personally have only ever been self-managed, meaning every time I get an email or a DM from a brand who wants to work together, I handle that collaboration pretty much from start to finish. So I'm part of the negotiation, coming up with concepts, redlining contracts, and all of that stuff. And it is super time consuming. So the point that I would say you should think about getting a manager is when you have so many inbound requests that you feel like you need to outsource and you need help to manage all of the inbound requests. Because I think that one of the biggest misconceptions about management is that managers actively pitch you, and some management teams do actively pitch you, especially if there's a one-off particular thing that you're very excited about and you say, hey, can we reach out to this brand because I want to do this specific idea with them? Usually most are happy to do that, but a manager's job is not really to sit there and pitch you out to other brands all day. And the reason for that is usually the way that a management team gets paid is by a commission of your brand partnerships. So in general, a management team will probably take around 20% of the total fee of whatever your collaboration rate was. So that's why it's important to be making enough money from brand partnerships where that 20% is less important to you and you don't mind outsourcing it to save time on the admin work, and also where you are getting a lot of those inbound requests, because most management teams are not going to be sending out like 5 or 10 pitches for you on any given day. So in terms of if I were looking for management, or if I could give tips for someone looking for a manager, I would say first ask around within your network, ask your influencer friends, check in Facebook groups to see who people really like working with, maybe who people don't love working with, and keep in mind that generally people leave reviews for things that they either love or hate. So someone else's experience might not be your experience. I'm not entirely sure, but what I would do is to connect with a management team and say, can we try you guys on a 3-month contract or something like that, just to make sure that I really like them, they really like me, and that all of the pieces are moving. So if for some reason something's not working out, we kind of have an end date just in sight, or we know that at that point we're going to check in and see what we could do to kind of improve the relationship, or just make sure that we are on the same track and meeting all the goals that we want to be meeting. I think you'll know when you need a manager. For me personally, I don't have enough legitimate inbound brand partnerships. I get lots of, still gifted things, or we'll pay you $50 for a TikTok, which you know how I feel about that. But to me, I feel like until I'm at the point where I have a lot of active campaigns and where I'm getting that much more inbound, so that is kind of more so the point where I would consider getting a manager. But I've also been doing this for over a decade now by myself, and I'm a Virgo and I like to have control over things. So it would have to be substantial enough for me to want to hire a manager versus just handling everything myself. Let's move on and talk through a couple of questions about working with brands and also just making money in general as a content creator. I really love this question because I don't think that I've addressed this before. And the question is, how do you handle it when a brand asks you to put together a proposal and then changes their mind and shifts direction, and you're spending a lot of time pricing things out for them and they can't make up their mind and actually get something signed? Because that does take time, right? To price everything out and to be going back and forth with a brand. So that can definitely be frustrating. So this is why I am a big fan of creating a rate sheet as an influencer. And a rate sheet is essentially a price list where you write out what you ideally would be charging for basically every deliverable that you can think of. So feel free to get super detailed with your rate sheet and write out the prices for an Instagram post, an Instagram reel, stories, and all of those different things across your platforms so that you always have it, at least in terms of the content. I also recommend adding things to your rate sheet like your rate for 3 months of usage for short form video content, your rate for 3 months of usage for long form video content, so that it's all there and ready to go so that you can more easily pull from it, especially if a brand is going back and forth with you a lot, just trying to land somewhere that you both feel good about. If you'd like to learn more about rate sheets and watch a tutorial of me making a rate sheet in Canva that you can follow step by step, check out the video linked in the iBar and down below, and you can watch it after you finish this video. Okay, here we have a really interesting question, which is how do you handle it if you do a paid brand deal and then the brand does something that goes against your values or something that you don't agree with? This person wrote in and said, "This is one of the reasons I'm hesitant to accept brand deals. I've been promoting a platform for years and they recently made a change I don't agree with. I'm not sure what would have happened if I had created a video previously endorsing them." This is something that I think we should all be thinking about as content creators, because anything could change at any moment. We live in just a constant mode of flux as far as I'm concerned. You know, one day you have Reels bonuses on Instagram and now you don't. One day you can't pay to be verified on Instagram and now you can. I think it's usually Instagram who's the one changing things. But to the point of this creator's question, what happens if a brand that you used to like, you know, what if that company gets acquired by a company that you hate? Or what if they have a racism scandal, or they're not paying their workers fairly, or just a number of other things? You always want to be thinking about and protecting your brand as a creator at the end of the day. So there are two main things that I would think about doing and incorporating if this is a concern of yours. One of the first things that I would look out for in any contract that you enter into with a brand is a morality clause. And basically a morality clause just says, on both sides, by the way, for both the brand and the creator, be a good person. And if you're posting things on your platform, or if the brand is doing things that you both don't agree with, that you can terminate the contract basically at any point. So I'm definitely paraphrasing a little bit here, and a morality clause will vary from contract to contract, but in general, it's there to protect both parties, both the brand and the creator, from what if one side does something the other, you know, finds to be immoral or that they really don't agree with. So if you're receiving contracts from a brand, definitely be on the lookout for a clause like that. And if you're a content creator who prefers to send your own contract, or you find that you're the one who's providing the contract in a collaboration, I would definitely consult a lawyer and have them help you phrase that so that you can make sure this doesn't happen to you. I'm not a lawyer, but my friend Veronica is. I will put her handle on the screen here, and if you have a more specific, like, pressing question about this, I would definitely just shoot her a DM and hopefully she can help you out in some way. This is also a reason where I always suggest to content creators that you cap your usage, your whitelisting and boosting, cap it at a year, because a brand using your content for more than a year is usually pretty unlikely, but they like knowing that they have perpetual ownership or perpetual usage of your content. But this is a great reason why you want to cap it at a year, because you just never know what could happen in the future. Even if it's your favorite brand in the world, it could get bought again by someone you don't like. They could have a new CEO who makes all these changes and does things differently. So at the very least, you are only still associated with them for a set period of time. Please, guys, stop agreeing to perpetual usage. It is honestly more damaging to you than anyone else, and it's just such an uneven balance of the brand gets so much more than you do out of a collaboration, and a collaboration is supposed to be benefiting both parties in some way. So please keep an eye out for that word in your contract. Push back against the brands who are, you know, very stern about you signing on to it, because it just benefits them so much more, and it can not be good for you if you end up in a situation like this. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I got another question. Can you clarify the terms seeding and whitelisting? I keep seeing them everywhere. Of course. So whitelisting we actually just talked about, or I just referenced, where you create content, you post it on your page, and then the brand connects to the back end of your account and boosts the post so it reaches many more people but they are the ones spending money and it's showing up as though it's your profile. So it's not like they repost your image, put it on their page, and they're boosting that. It's called whitelisting because you are getting the content boosted and it's coming from your account, but the brand is actually the one who's paying for that to happen. So usually to do whitelisting, you need to give the brand access through the back end of your account. This is pretty easy and straightforward to do on most platforms. And again, just make sure you're working with a brand that is a legitimate brand and a company that you really trust when you're doing whitelisting, and definitely charge for whitelisting because at the end of the day, your account and your likeness are being used to promote their product or service, and you deserve to be compensated for that. And then the other term was seeding, which I was pretty sure I knew what seeding was, but I did look it up just to confirm before this video. But seeding is basically mass influencer gifting, where brands are sending out product to creators. And in general, there is not an obligation for the creator to post anything about that product. That's different from a gifted campaign where you specifically agree to post about a product in exchange for receiving it. If you want to learn more about gifted campaigns and collaborations and how you can turn gifted partnerships into paid partnerships, I have a video about that I will link for you guys to watch after you finish this video. The next question is for any of you travel, food, and lifestyle content creators out there. The question was, when is it appropriate to reach out and ask for a media rate versus paying full price for something? So an example would be reaching out to a hotel and asking for a comped night stay, or reaching out to a restaurant and asking for a meal in exchange for social media coverage. So I just want to say, first of all, hospitality can be a very tricky industry as an influencer because in general, usually it is something gifted like this, and it's very hard to get paid unless you really have big impact or you really have great connections. So I just wanted to kind of start out by saying that, and gifting and complimentary things in this space are much more common than in a space like beauty. But I would approach it the way you would approach any paid brand collaboration. So I would reach out to them and be very friendly, professional, be specific, like why this hotel, why this restaurant? What about it is something that you think that you would love and would want to share with your audience? And why would your audience in particular enjoy it? So if I were reaching out to an Italian restaurant in New York City, I would say something along the lines of, I love Italian food. I actually am Italian. My family is from Italy. I just love looking for cute, fun date spots. And 60% of my audience is based in New York City. So I think that you might get some people who come in if they see me post about it, right? Like that's a much more compelling reason to say, sure, why don't you and Andrew come in and have a free meal on us and you can create whatever content you want. That feels also like something that's mutually beneficial because I'm getting something out of it, something that I've asked for, but the brand is also getting something out of it too. So I would very clearly communicate your idea, remember what value you can offer them, and also make sure that it feels like a fair trade. And I think that is the big thing. And you can decide on a case-by-case basis when something is or isn't worth it. It's possible that you reach out to a hotel and they say, we can't do a comp tonight, but we can give you like a media discount. And maybe saving that $200 is worth it to you. But I would say always keep it civil. And if they say they can't make it work for some reason, you can just say thank you. And if anything changes, they could always reach back out later. In general, I'm a big fan of not burning bridges. Good life advice. These are really, really good questions, by the way. Okay, another brand question here, which is what to do if a brand is late on payments, even if the date they were supposed to pay you was very clearly outlined in a contract or invoice. So in general, I'll be the first to admit, getting paid as a content creator from clients can kind of suck sometimes. It's actually more common, I feel like, for a brand to be late than to pay on time in some cases. And I think that is a big consideration if you're thinking about doing this full time, or if you want to do something self-employed and be freelance. I mean, getting paid 60 days after the fact, plus maybe it takes an extra week for some reason, like that's something that you really need to be thinking about and account into your life when you're thinking about going the self-employed route. So So unfortunately, in general, this is pretty common for brands, but just to make sure you have all of your bases covered, here are a few suggestions. First, before you reach out to them if they're late to pay, make sure that you've sent them everything that they need to pay you. So make sure if they asked for an invoice that you've sent that. I have a video about making invoices and an invoice template if you need one. Make sure that they have your tax information. If they asked you to fill out, something on their vendor website, just make sure that all of your bases are covered before you approach them and say, hey, I'm missing a payment, because it's a little embarrassing if they come back to you and say, you never sent us this, so that's why you haven't been paid yet. And then I would start to follow up. I would follow up first with your brand contact, and if it starts to get into, now we're like 2 weeks late or we're really running late on the payments, you could ask them to loop in their accounting team and say, hey, would it be okay if I have a direct contact with accounting just so I can stay on top of this and get any updates from them? Because usually your brand contact is not the one in charge of paying you. If you can get in contact with someone whose job it is to make sure you get paid, that will make sure that your relationship with your brand contact who hires you stays as intact and unscathed as possible if a company is behind on a payment. If it's really getting bad, you could also consult a lawyer. Again, I'll link Veronica's information down below if you do need one who specializes in this space. Hopefully it doesn't have to come to that, but I don't know. I still have an unpaid invoice of $2,500 from 2019. So unfortunately, sometimes it happens even to the best of us, but I think that, this is again kind of just a hazard of this job, and something to be aware of is that most of the time you will get paid, and even if it's net 30, it'll come through. But if you aren't prepared for a late payment or something to go missing or something to go wrong, a company to go bankrupt, who knows what the deal is, it's always great to have additional supplemental income streams and additional buffers in each one of your months so that you can prepare for the unexpected. And this is something we talk about so much in the Influencer Income Accelerator, my digital course, but it really is something that I think all creators should be thinking about. And the last thing I want to say about this payment situation is you could also consider adding a late fee or late charge to your contracts to motivate people to pay you on time. So if you get to make edits to the contract, or if you're supplying your own contract, you could consider putting in a late fee of X amount of money for every day that it's late, or X percentage of the rate for every day that it's late. Again, this will sometimes help motivate companies to pay you on time, but honestly, I would love to talk to someone in accounting at a brand and just understand what the process start to finish is from when we send an invoice to then when we actually get paid, because it feels like it's not a point from A to B. It feels like it is a zigzag path at best. Got another question here about the best way to secure repeat brand partnerships. And I actually could probably do a whole video about this, but I think that all brands and creators should ideally be thinking about ways to work together beyond just one Instagram post. Because first of all, there's things like the marketing rule of 7, where people need to see something at least 7 times before they take action on it. So the more that your audience sees you talking about a particular brand, the more likely they might then be to go click your link or go buy the product or see what it's about at the very least. So I think in terms of securing repeat brand partnerships, first of all, if you have worked with any brands on just one post, of course, doing a good job on that the first time, being responsive, meeting deadlines, going a little bit above and beyond even when you can. If you said you would do 3 Instagram story frames, maybe you can also do a 4th, and it could be something simple like adding the link again or taking a selfie with the product, just to show that you are going a little bit more than what they originally agreed to. I think is a great way to get a brand's attention. Also, keep mentioning that brand organically after the partnership ends. I can't tell you how many times I see influencers post about something because it's paid and then it's never to be mentioned again. And it's like, what happened to your favorite moisturizer, Becky? Like, where'd it go? I also think that it's a great idea to check in with your brand partners quarterly, and it can be for a number of different things. You could say, hey, I love what you guys posted on Instagram today. You don't even have to ask for anything, but the fact that you're there and you have an ongoing relationship with them, that speaks for itself, and that will help brands realize when they do have an opportunity to come up, oh, like Alicia just told us last week how much she liked our Instagram about you know, I don't know, St. Patrick's Day. I'm trying to think of a recent holiday. Of course, St. Patrick's Day is the only one that we just had, but you could even say something like that. And they could say, you know, Alicia's always supporting us. When we worked together with her that one time, it was great. Like, let's reach out to her for our spring campaign. And also, I think pitching a brand a specific idea and saying something like, hey, I had a TikTok go viral and I used your lip mask in it. So maybe we could do a partnership all about my nighttime routine and how I use the lip mask. Like, that's a very specific idea and you have evidence that it worked already. So that makes a brand much more inclined to say yes to that than if you just said, hey, I would love to work together again. What are they gonna do with that? You know, it's the lowest effort way to do something and we wanna go a step above that, right? And I also got just a few questions about social media platforms and content. So the first question is, do you plan to go live on YouTube? So I guess the short answer to that is no, not right now. I love YouTube. This is the platform where I truly see the biggest return on my investment of time. And I think that is kind of what it really comes back to for me, which is that if I thought that every time I came on to do a YouTube live, there would be like a big engaged group of people to talk or ask questions or do some kind of live chat session, I would totally do it. I have a small but growing engaged subscriber base here, and subscribe, by the way, if you haven't already. But I think that for me, it's a question of return on my investment of time. And I think it would be super fun to do. I think that I'm pretty good when I'm live because I do Clubhouse rooms every week and I've done a lot of Instagram lives before. So I feel pretty comfortable showing up live. I don't feel like I really need to practice doing that right now, but never say never. And the short answer is I don't really see a need for it right now, or I don't really hear people asking me to do that very much. So if I started to hear that more, it's definitely something I would consider. And this next question was actually submitted to me via email, and it wasn't officially submitted for this video, but I really did want to include it because I think it's something, unfortunately, a lot of us deal with and can run into. So this person said, I recently got locked out of my account, and while I've filed all of the help steps recommended by Instagram, I fear I may need to start all over. Any advice in terms of getting over the frustration of needing to do this, and also any next steps that I would recommend? So I will say, first of all, if as of right now, this moment, you haven't been hacked, like, or nothing's happened to your account, I would go get Instagram insurance, which, yes, is actually a thing. So I recently got Instagram insurance through Notch, and it's honestly just such peace of mind where they'll actually pay you for every day that you're locked out of your account if you get hacked. And honestly, I'm surprised that more people don't have it. Like, it's actually not very expensive, at least for me, it's not. I think I pay $9 a month or something like that. And it really is just nice to have that extra assurance, especially because up until the offering of Meta Verified, we haven't really had any access to customer support from Instagram. Instagram is not to be trusted. So if you want to try Notch, I'll leave a link to Notch down below in the description box, and you can go get a quote to see what it would be to insure your Instagram. I can almost guarantee you it will be very well worth it. And then if this has unfortunately happened to you for some reason, one of the first things that I would do is to go create a backup account. So go grab a new handle, post, you know, your same profile photo in the bio, say I was hacked or account disabled or something like that, and also post a picture of yourself to your feed, because one thing that Instagram will sometimes do if you get locked out is be able to confirm your identity based on a photo in your feed. So even if you don't normally post pictures of yourself on your Instagram, trust me, just make sure that you do this. This happened to a friend of mine where the reason she didn't get her account back is because she was a photographer posting all these pictures of other people and there wasn't a clear picture of her for Instagram to confirm her identity. If you can still see your old account, if you've just been locked out but it hasn't been disabled and it's still up, I would go in and start following all of the people who you followed previously. Again, if they see your account pop up and they might think, oh, is this a bot or something? Like, this isn't the person I thought it was. If they click to your profile and see that you said account disabled at 10K followers or something, they'll know that it's you and they'll know it's real. So I would at least make that backup account and follow the people who you were following originally and try try to get those people, if you have any mutual followers, to share your new account or share that you got locked out, because sometimes that's a good way to just broadcast the message to more people. Maybe it'll find its way to someone at Instagram if possible. And I would say also that whether you've been hacked or not, whether you're good with Instagram or not, create an email newsletter or a blog, just something that you own that is not Instagram, because it is crazy how unreliable Instagram has become. And we build so much of our businesses on a platform where we can't even really reach out if something is wrong unless we pay for it, apparently. Can you tell I'm salty about Meta Verified? This is because I actually got verified a few weeks ago and now anyone can pay to do it. And I'm like, well, that was special for like, I don't know, 27 days. And now it's just not really anymore. But back to what I was saying, I do think it's so important to have a platform that you own and that's yours no matter what, because at the end of the day, algorithms can change, accounts can get disabled, but you'll own your blog and you'll own your list. So one of those two things, if you don't have one, start one today. It does not have to be anything fancy. You don't need to do anything really with it other than tell people about it, but it can come in handy so much in situations like this. And the last thing that I'll say about this is really just try as much as possible to keep your head up. I know how frustrating it can be to build up a community and see it disappear or see it get blocked for some reason, and it's just incredibly frustrating. And this is, again, kind of part of being a creator, is preparing for the worst case scenario like this and thinking about, what would I do if Instagram was gone tomorrow? What would I do if TikTok gets banned? What would I do if YouTube blocks me? Like, it is just something that you need to have a backup plan for. Even if you never use it, having the plan will really help you not stress out should anything ever happen in the future. And also, I will say this, if you've built a community once, you can do it again. Whether that means on Instagram and you go and start a TikTok for the first time and you feel like you have no idea what you're doing, if you've done it once, you can do it again. So don't give up and make sure that you just do everything possible to diversify your platforms and let your community know all of the different places where they can find you should for some reason you ever lose touch. Thank you so much for all of the wonderful questions that you guys submitted, and thank you as always for your support on my journey as being a self-employed content creator. This is truly, truly my dream job, and I couldn't do it without you. If you'd like to check out last year's Q&A, if you enjoyed this video, I'll leave that for you to watch next up on the screen. And until then, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.